If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
They now head to South Beach to take on the Miami Heat in a crucial matchup for playoff implications. The Knicks are currently the 5th seed in the East. They sit 3.5 games ahead of the Heat, who are in 7th. This is one of the 3 matchups remaining left with the Miami Heat. They have 2 of them in South Beach. That one of them will, of course, be on Friday, and they have another one later on in the season. So big game for the Knicks in terms of the standings. The Heat are coming off a loss to the Sixers at home on Wednesday. The last time these two teams played, the Knicks beat the Heat 106-104 Madison Square Garden. That was actually probably the last great game from RJ Barry. I think he had 31 in that game or 30. So and that was a game without Jalen Brunson, I believe. So that was a big win for the Knicks at that time, as the Knicks and Heat were jockeying at that time, I think, for the 6th seed. Now things have changed greatly at this point in the season. So at this point in time, is the way the Knicks are playing. And I know, this is saying barring a kind of crazy collapse that happens down the stretch. Do you feel like the Knicks can get a win here and put them up 4.5 in the standings? Do you feel like that would kind of really put the Heat in the rearview mirror moving forward this season?
Yeah, I mean, one thing we got to keep in mind, this 7-game win streak is the second longest win streak the Knicks have had this season. They won 8 in a row back in December. Then they lost 5 in a row. That being said, I don't anticipate that being the case because this team is just far more well-rounded. The strength of schedule that the teams the Knicks have beat are better than the Knicks beat up on during that 8-game winning streak. This certainly feels a lot more sustainable. But that being said, the Knicks don't have the history, don't have the pedigree to look past any team. So that's why these games against the Heat are important because, again, Knicks fans are going to keep their eye on that 4 seed, but they also should look behind, in the rearview mirror that you obviously want to avoid that 7 seed. As we've talked about all year long, you want to avoid the play-in. And it looks like the Nets are obviously trending in the wrong direction. Knicks should be able to build a cushion. But they're 3.5 up on Miami right now. And you're right. If they can get 4.5 up by beating them Friday night, and they should. I mean, listen, this Heat team, Kyle Lowry did not play. They got blown out by the Sixers on Wednesday night. Kyle Lowry didn't play again due to that, that knee soreness that he's been dealing with. Bam Adebayo is really the only player producing on a consistent level. Jimmy Butler was, 16, 3 and 3. He's going to play well, but certainly not. At this stage of his career, probably not capable of dominating for long stretches. Gabe Vincent starting at point guard. Tyler Hero was 4-15 from the floor. Kevin Love is starting and playing 25 minutes a night for Miami. A guy that couldn't even was out of the rotation because he was a liability defensively for Cleveland for the last month. They don't have a ton coming off the bench. Caleb Martin obviously is a talented player, and Max Strus as well, but Cody Zeller, Duncan Robinson is kind of trying to get back into the rotation. In terms of talent, from top to bottom, not only, Brunson and Randall at top, but again, the thing we've talked about, previously on this pod and previous pods is that 3rd through 9 player in the rotation, the Hart, the IQ, the Hartenstein, the Mitch Rob, and then Jalen Brunson kind of being the wild card. That's where the Knicks kind of can differentiate themselves on a night in, night out basis. And that's where they should be able to take advantage of a humbled and hurting Miami Heat team.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they win this game, the Heat are cooked in terms of trying to catch the Knicks. Now Brooklyn is still in the picture. Now they'd have to really turn around how they're playing. But they're close enough in the standings where you can't dismiss Brooklyn. But if they get a 4.5 against the Heat, that's a lot. And then the Heat would then have to sweep the Knicks in the last 2 games. And the way Knicks are playing, do I think the Heat can beat the Knicks 3 straight times, essentially? That would surprise me.
Right. That's the only thing to mention as far as those 2 teams head to head is even if the Knicks win Friday and have a huge 4.5 game lead with 16 or so games, that he do play them twice. So theoretically, Knicks stumble and he would obviously have to win those 2 games. It's not inconceivable that they would make the run, but certainly the Knicks would have a huge, seemingly insurmountable lead if they take care of business Friday night.
Yeah. And I think when you look at the standings, because the Nets are, entirely different team than they were 2 weeks ago, the Heat are the team you look at and say, okay, we know their pedigree, we know the caliber of players they have. They're the team you kind of worry about, say, okay, maybe they'll catch them, they can get hot. The Heat, they've shown in history that they can go on a 9 out of 10 game stretch or win 12 out of 13. So that's the team that you worry about. But 4.5 with the way this Heat team is playing, they're an older team, they're a little bit beat up. I just think that would be too much to overcome. So this is a big opportunity for the Knicks. You mentioned Kyle Lowry. When he's played, he's been ineffective, and now he's even not playing. So maybe that's a addition by subtraction. I'm not sure. They started Gabe Vincent the last game. He went 0 for 7 from 3. So I'm not sure how much of an upgrade that's going to be. So the Heat are in a little bit of trouble. And, there's the rumblings about, how happy is Jimmy Butler with the situation right now. We know Bam Adebayo. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the NBA. I mean, that last game against the Knicks, I mean, he looked like a superstar in that game. He was phenomenal. And he's a great player, great two-way player. It just doesn't feel like they have a lot around him. And they, like you mentioned, the bench, they do not have a lot coming off the bench. So it almost feels like the Heat at this point are kind of playing out the string. And then they'll just kind of see what happens when they get to the postseason, whether it's a play-in matchup or they find a way to get to that 6th spot and catch the Nets. But I don't know. I think that the Knicks, this is a game you said. There's 7 in a row. So at a certain point, they're not going to win, 30 in a row, whatever games left. So the Knicks are going to lose at some point. So if they lost, I mean, it's going to happen at some point. But it feels like on paper, the Knicks should beat this team. It feels like they should beat this team. They're deeper, they're younger, they're fresher. And I would argue if they don't got the best player on the floor, they got 2 of the 3 best players on the floor in Randall and Brunson.
Yeah, I mean, listen, as I mentioned, the Heat started Kevin Love at power forward last night. I mean,
Jesus.
You can't ask Kevin Love to guard Julius Randle. I mean, that's an embarrassment. They'll probably put Caleb Martin.
I guess he's on Mitch, right? I guess he'll start on Mitch. But I mean,
put Bam on Randle. You thinking? Yeah. That's a possibility. I don't know if you want Bam, guarding. I could see Randall putting up 10 3-pointers if just
right.
drawing Bam, way outside the floor. That's a great matchup defensively for Mitch, though, who's been playing at a really high level. He'll get, he'll have a tough test against Bam Adebayo.
Yep.
And the other at point guard. So you got Jalen Brunson against Gabe Vincent is a mismatch as well. And then you got the bench unit with Hart and IQ, as we mentioned. So yeah, on paper, Knicks have there's a big talent discrepancy, and the things you hate about Tibbs leaving Brunson and Randall in the game up 40 points with 3 minutes left until last night. The good comes with that bad comes with the good. He keeps this team hungry. They don't take a second off. So they're not going to overlook any opponent. I thought Wednesday night might have been a trap game, coming off a huge win over the Celtics. The Nets are going to get up for the game. How do teams deal with success? And the Knicks more than showed up. Jocelyn talked about that, getting off to a strong start, and it was the Knicks led by Randall and Brunson, who really just buried the Brooklyn right out of the gate.
Yeah, Knicks are starting to show the signs of being a mature team. Like, yes. I know they have a lot of young players, but it feels like, like you said, pretty much since the turn of the calendar year, these like absolute stinkers, like they haven't had a lot of them. Like they may have a bad quarter, they may have a bad half, like they had against the Washington game. It was really a bad quarter. They may have a bad quarter, maybe they'll have a bad half, but it's rare that they'll just not show up for an entire game. And I do think that, like, I have given Tibbs a lot of crap on this podcast, and I will give him crap when I think that he deserves it. But he is doing a tremendous job keeping this team prepared, keeping this team focused, and he just seems to have the right temperature of the squad, something that I don't think he had last season, but he definitely has right now.
Yeah, and just one thing about Tibbs, and I almost have to laugh when folks on media, a lot of media members especially, say, "Oh, where are the Tibbs haters now? You guys are silent." Or no, I don't think it's as much of an own as these guys think. The reason the season the Knicks were 10-13 with this essentially the same level. They were 3 games below 500 because he was playing Fournier, because he was playing IQ 22 minutes a night, because he was playing Derrick Rose extended minutes when it's clear Derrick Rose is a shell of himself. What did he do? He did what the Tibbs haters wanted him to do: play IQ a ton more minutes, give McBride have him replace the rotation that the minutes Fournier was getting to improve the team defensively. What do you know?
Quinn Grimes,
and Quinn Grimes, give him a ton more minutes. What do you know? The Knicks turn it around, and again, Tibbs deserves credit. Where credit is due. But the beauty of claiming that Tibbs haters are blind is, okay, so if Tibbs gets credit for their record this year, does he get blamed? Is he the one to blame for essentially, for them having a terrible season last year? So I keep that in mind when you see folks say, Listen, and I've said from the start, the NBA is about talent. You can't, you don't want to put too much emphasis on coaching. That changes a little bit in the postseason when you have to make adjustments. Tibbs was badly out coached in the Atlanta series. He'll get a chance at redemption this year. We'll see how it goes. But again, and we've been sincere since day one. We've knocked Tibbs when he deserves it, and you give him credit when he deserves it. You knock Randall when he's playing poorly and quitting on his team and showing zero effort defensively. Then you credit him when he fights through screens and does the little extra things here and there and passes the ball at it and stops doing the turnaround in the middle lane where he gets stripped and turns the ball over. We do this weird thing where we give players credit and coaches credit when they deserve it. So if you enter it without a significant bias, and looking and coming to an endpoint and then finding reasons for it, if you just you make your analysis and comment on the games after they happen, you leave yourself a lot of opportunity to again be fair, and that includes knocking guys when they don't play well, as we've done with Barrett, and crediting guys like Brunson when they turn around an entire franchise.
Yeah, I mean, the Tibbs stuff is funny when people are like, where are the Tibbs haters? Like you said, Tibbs made adjustments that I could have made if I was in the bench. In fact, there are adjustments I kept asking for when I was talking on the podcast or talking on radio in New York City, that these are the things they need to do to change the program, change the team around, and lo and behold, that happens. Okay, credit for doing that, but that doesn't negate what we were saying before was true. And what I always find funny, because you always mention like how like every time the Knicks go on some winning streak, that article of where the Tibbs haters is never late. It's always coming.
Never.
But you know what article never gets written? Where's the love for Leon Rose?
Yep.
Like every time there's a win streak that happens, it's always, it's Tibbs. You got to give Tibbs all the credit. Where the people, but those same media members who want to give Leon Rose crap for not talking to them, for being basically on the back of a milk carton because you can't find him, they will hammer him. They will make every single move he makes or move he doesn't make and talk about how he's failing the team. But then when they start winning, it's Tibbs. It's got to be Tibbs. It's not Leon Rose. It's not Leon Rose, the guy who brought in Jalen Brunson, the guy who traded for Josh Hart and led this 7-0 stretch to Josh Hart joining the team. It can't be that. It's got to be all Tibbs.
Perfect point is the Josh Hart. It's not even Leon Rose got the guy. Tibbs got his guy in Josh Hart, so he gets credit for it. Tibbs got his guy in Jalen Brunson, as if he's the one on the work on the phones and trying to figure out the cap and figure out how to get a trade done. It's just,
I've unfortunately seen Tibbs run an NBA team. It didn't go very well. Exactly. I saw him run the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Into the ground.
So it sounds like every time when we talk about the guys Tibbs wants, it sounds like the front office most of the time ignores them. They're like, yeah, okay, whatever. The only guy that gave him was Derrick Rose. All these other guys he's been asked for. He wanted Reggie Bullock back. They were like, "Get out of here, old man."
Yep. Alex Burks back.
Yeah, when Alex Burks back, get out of here, man. So exactly, it's we give credit where credit is due. Tibbs is doing a very good job. He has his strengths. I think you're seeing his strengths accentuated with this squad.
Definitely.
The weaknesses that he has, I think, could show up in the postseason with adjustments that have to be made quickly. He's made adjustments much quicker this season than he has in the past, and that's why the Knicks have this record. Let's hope that he makes those same adjustments when it's playoff time. Yep. Last thing on the Heat real quick. I love the Miami Heat matchup. For a lot of older fans, like they think about the Knicks-Bulls rivalry, Knicks-Pacers rivalry, and to some degree, I got a little bit of Knicks-Pacers rivalry in the late 2000s. But like the Heat rivalry is like the rivalry for me. Like whenever I think of teams I hate in the NBA as a Knicks fan, the Miami Heat always go right up to the top of the list because of those matchups in 97, 98, 99, and 2000. Incredible that they played that many times in a row with the Pat Riley going from New York and then going to Miami kind of in the wind of the night to run that organization. Any favorite moments in the Miami Heat Knicks rivalry?
Yeah, for me, it's an easy one. It's Allen Houston's shot. In 99 Game 5. The backstory for me was I was a sophomore in college, I think that year. And I went to Holy Cross up in Massachusetts, and at the end of the year, a bunch of students would get together and rent out a couple hotel rooms or whatever apartments down on the Cape, on the Atlantic Ocean side of Massachusetts. I didn't go. I missed like the first couple days of that because I wanted to make sure that I was at home watching that, and I still was on the fence, like, should I go? And anyway, long story short, Knicks playing the Heat that day, Game 5. Allen Houston hits that shot. I'm in my basement with my cousin. And we go crazy, and I go, "Yo, let's leave right now." We get in the car, drive out to the Cape, amped up, and watch the Hawk series. I ended up getting thrown out of the hotel because I was running around like the parking lot after a Camby dunk against Atlanta in Game 2, and the owner of the hotel throws me out. My friends still joke with me about this. He throws me out of that. He says, "Yo, you can't stay here. You got to go." And I just looked at the guy. I go, "Must be a Hawks fan." So that's my little story from that run in '99, and that's why that moment. And Patrick, people forget how Patrick playing with the heart of a warrior on a bum Achilles.
Absolutely.
That series always was, I think, kind of his last great moments as a Knick.
Yeah, Ewing was an absolute warrior in that series. It's funny, I was looking back at that play. Play, by the way, the shot from Houston is hanging up in my apartment. It's one of the few sports pictures I have hanging up in my apartment. Houston's a beautiful shot from behind the baseline of him shooting and seeing the Heat crowds kind of like, oh no. It's definitely one of my favorite moments as a sports fan. I mean, I remember being a kid in Queens, and it's funny, my dad's a huge Knicks fan, but he wasn't home. I think he was working. So I like, and this is like, maybe I don't know if my dad had a cell phone at this point, or if he did, it was not something he would use to like call and talk about, hey, the Knicks won. But like, I remember like Houston hitting that shot, and it's just like my mom and my brothers, and like I'm just running around the apartment going crazy. The Knicks are gonna win this series. I just remember being like, I cannot wait to tell my dad what I just saw, because I know my dad, he might have been listening on the radio, but he might not have seen it. So I'm like, he's not gonna believe how the Knicks won this game. So like, thinking about that and thinking about like that moment, always high on the list when it comes to sports memories. I also, you can't also forget about Jeff Van Gundy hanging on the leg of Alonzo Mourning, as him and LJ are just throwing haymakers at each other. I mean, that was a different time in the NBA. It's crazy to think of how things are now and think of how things were in that series. I mean, there were fights breaking out. It seemed like every game. It was crazy.
Two really quick things on the Houston shot. 1.8 seconds left when the Knicks inbounded. One of the great what ifs. If they had a replay, I think that ball goes off Sprewell's foot, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
The play right before, like if you slow it down, then they would have, that shot. Obviously, they don't even get the chance to inbound. I think Marley fouled Houston on the shot, hit him on the top of the head. But the other thing is 0.8 seconds left after the shot drops. Van Gundy screaming at the official for allowing Terry Porter to get a shot off. He took a dribble and then launched one from like 35 feet. Didn't go in, obviously, but I actually had an opportunity to talk to Van Gundy last year, and I asked him, like, why were you screaming at the official? He said, because Terry Porter should not have. Again, remember, they didn't have replay at that point either. So if that shot goes in, the ref had his arms up and it bent off then it would have counted. They couldn't have overturned it with replay. So I said,
right.
you just won the first 8 seed to beat a 1 seed, and you're screaming at the official. He goes, yeah, because we almost lost on some BS, So that was a great series, a great moment in Knicks history.
And one thing I'll mention also as well as we move on, like I also forgot, because I watched that whole series, that last minute of that game, like yesterday or a couple days ago. I don't know why it was up on Twitter, and I forgot how terrible that offensive series was before Sprewell gets the ball knocked out of bounds. Like, they had nothing cooking. I don't know what Jeff was doing on that draw to start, because there was nothing happening, and they got lucky that they got that side out of bounds.
And not just that series, not just that quarter, those games, those Pacers games. For anyone that complains, oh, the NBA, there's too many 3-pointers, it's boring. Go watch. Treat yourself to like one of those 7-game series against the Pacers, or those knockdown drag out fights when they would dump the ball into Ewing. And I love Patrick, yada yada yada. But and then one guy would stand on one side of the floor, the other 4 guys would watch. Just watch that, and then contrast it with the movement and effort and energy teams play with today.
Yeah, Knicks got very lucky in that one, but we're happy that they are. Knicks Heat, big game Friday, always a fun one when the Knicks and Heat match up. I want to end this.